Welcome to today's webinar on cybersecurity and AI as it relates to the current war in Israel and emerging trends in both really important technology areas. My name is Jonah Levine, and I'm going to be helping run today's webinar. We're going to get kicked off in just a moment, but before we do, I'd like to take the first couple of minutes while folks are getting settled in, to introduce you to Yigal Zeidenstein, who's the president and founder of the American Friends of the Israel Intelligence, Heritage, and Commemoration Center, the AFIICC, who is hosting today's discussion. Yigal, first I want to thank you for making this possible and bringing us here today. And before we get started, I'd love for you to take a couple minutes to introduce yourself and the AFIICC.
Thank you very much, Jonah, and Yorai for participating in the webinar, and also for Yuval Halamish, the CEO of the IICC, for bringing Yorai to join to the webinar. My name is Yigal Zeidenstein, and I am the founder and the president of the American Friends of the Israel Intelligence, Heritage, and Commemoration Center, AFIICC. The AFIICC was established a year ago as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and one of the goals is to outreach to the American Jewish community and to bring awareness and to raise funds for the IICC. The IICC, Israel Intelligence, Heritage, and Commemoration Center mission is to educate about the heritage, the history of the Mossad, the Shin Bet, and the Israeli intelligence unit of the IDF. So, for example, we establishing the Israeli Intelligence Museum, and we have educational programs for youth and for adults in our center in Israel. We also support the orphans and the widows of the Israeli intelligence community. And we have two research centers. One research center about fighting anti-Semitism and the BDS, headed by Colonel Shlomo Mofaz, and the other research center about the Institute for the Methodology of Intelligence, headed by Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser. And I'm honored to be here, and thank you for participating at this webinar.
Thank you, Yigal. With that said, we're going to go ahead and jump in. But once again, Yigal, wouldn't be able to be here without you pulling the pieces together. And I also want to thank Daniel Azuri, who wasn't able to join, but played a big role in getting this all set up. So let's go ahead and jump into our content for today. Once again, want to thank you all for tuning into our webinar. I'll be discussing several cybersecurity and AI topics with retired Colonel Yorai Fainmesser, who I'll be introducing you to in a moment. And before we begin, I want to mention that we'll be taking questions throughout the webinar. So please, go ahead and add those questions in the chat, and we'll have our moderators answer them as quickly as they can. So please take advantage of this opportunity. I'm going to advance to our next slide here, which is a quick agenda overview on what we're going to be discussing today. Couple things I want to call out. First off, this is not going to be a deeply technical session. Our goal is really to discuss these topics, these cybersecurity and AI topics, at a high level so that anyone listening can learn and get value from the discussion. I also want to acknowledge the elephant in the room that, this is an Israel intelligence focused discussion. We're going to recognize and deep dive into the significant cybersecurity obstacles that Israel has and is currently facing. We're also going to discuss how those same cybersecurity and AI principles and topics are relevant for everybody, regardless of what country you're in, regardless of what industry you work in. And lastly, I also want to disclose that I'm not a Israel intelligence expert, so we'll be leaning on Yorai's experience in that area, and I'll provide my perspective, given my experience working with security leaders and teams at many different types of organizations. So taking a look at the agenda here, we've already gotten through the first item with Yigal, and he'll provide more info at the end of our call on how to get involved in the organization in the AFIICC. In a moment, we're going to dive into introductions. I'm going to let Yorai kick us off, who's our special guest. And as I mentioned, Yorai is a colonel from the Intelligence Corps in the IDF, a retired colonel. And I'll also go ahead and introduce myself. Lastly, once we get through introductions, we'll jump into our main topics for discussion today. And we've actually unveiled those for you here on this slide. The first topic is how things in cybersecurity and AI have changed since October 7th. We'll then jump into discussing how cybersecurity and AI as technology areas are beginning to converge together. The third topic we'll touch on is the challenges, cybersecurity challenges for governments and enterprises, how they differ, what similar challenges they have, and then we'll finish off by discussing a couple of trends that Yorai and I think you should keep your eyes on in the coming months and coming years. With that said, let me go ahead and advance here. And Yorai, why don't we jump into introductions, and I'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Jonah. Good evening. Good evening, Igal, and good evening, everybody. Few words about myself. Actually, two major leads. One of them is being a co-founder and a general partner at Disruptive AI VC. It's actually the first Israeli AI specialized fund, meaning we are the first one that put on the target the AI trend a few years ago and start investing in that area, already deploying some investments, and that helps me to actually engage with the cutting edge of startups and technologies that AI might bring to the world. My second actually background is being IDF retired colonel. My last job description was the head of the AI unit, which I've established a few years before. Before that, many years in A200, leading R&D, mainly cyber, but not only, algorithms and so forth. Had the privilege to win the Israeli Defense Prize for an AI project, a major impact, and actually great technology that became mature under my command and gave a lot of benefits to the IDF and to the intelligence forces. And probably going to discuss some of it. And a few things that I'm doing more for the heart and for helping the environment and the ecosystem. One of them is helping the Minister of Education to try and use AI and implementing AI in all the aspects of the system. Helping the teachers, also helping the students. There are a lot of major issues like the language. The Hebrew language is a kind of endemic language issues. And another thing is my late joining to the OECD network of experts discussing all aspects of regulations and risks that comes with AI. It's a trendy issue with the European Act coming to our knowledge and published at the end of 23. So I'm doing it also as a volunteering, representing the Israeli or helping or taking part with the Israeli experts on that subject. So it's great to be here. I hope I can share some shed on what is going on when you combine AI and cyber together and what have really changed since October 7th, actually making the cyber kind of an arena that many of us probably feel here or engage with. And I would like to shed some light on how both sides, defensive and offensive, are acting in that arena, and we're going to discuss it soon. So thank you, Jonah. Let's move to you, and let's hear about you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Yorai. Super excited to have you on today. And it's tough to follow up that intro, but I'll go ahead here. So as I mentioned during the kickoff, and as you can see on your screen, my name is Jonah Levine. I'm an Enterprise Cybersecurity Executive at Microsoft. I help lead Microsoft's relationships with some of the most innovative companies in the world. And over the past 5 years, I've had the privilege of working with organizations across all major industries, from bleeding high-tech companies to healthcare organizations to energy companies and financial institutions, as well as some time focusing on government agencies, both here in the US and internationally. So now that we've covered intros, let's go ahead and jump into our first topic for today. And our first topic is taking a look at how things in cybersecurity and AI have changed since October 7th. Yorai, this is an area that I definitely want to defer to you, given your involvement in the intelligence community and, of course, your leadership in the IDF. Can you talk a little bit about how Israel has responded and some of the challenges the country has faced in the cyberspace since October 7th? And I'll advance your slide here. Please let me know when you want to move to the second one.
Sure. So anyone just Googles cyber battlefield or cyber events can see that since 7th October, the network is full of talks and headlines about attacks coming from many directions. Now, I picked up here just few headlines just to demonstrate how it's not like a one kind of attack that we are facing, but a kind of multi-dimensional and multivariant attacks. Some of them are using deep fake, and some others are using actually what we used to see as a hacker's attack and DDoS attacks and so forth. So suddenly we are defining the cyber battlefield in a wider perspective. It's not only like, I don't know, the day before or a year before that we used to reveal cyber attacks as hackers trying to penetrate your whatever account, system, and so forth. Now we understand it's a much greater battlefield that actually anyone can take part with, anyone can play with, and well, we'll mention it later. Probably many people that are not involved are actually taking part because cyber attacks are using their phones, their platforms, their computers, their accounts, their identity, and so forth. So actually, everybody are involved, and cyber attacks are so diverse. And if you move to the next slide, I try to help here just to, I don't know, build kind of a map or kind of a major areas that I believe that something has changed. First, let's say it's the Israeli perspective. It's from the government, but also, of course, the defense sector, but not only. And first, what we are defending? We are defending the first primary worries, the critical system. Critical system could be defense, the IDF system, and so forth, but also our water system, our electricity system, and so along with that, all systems that helps the resilience and helps the survival of the Israeli people and the Israeli country. So that would be critical system that if something is not working there, we have a major problem, we might have a crisis and so forth. So those systems are the first one to defend. And I think it's obvious, but I've seen it with my own eyes. They are being attacked, and since 7th October, what we get there is a scale like 10 times scale of attacks. Mean that many attackers from all over the world are trying to penetrate, sometimes in a funny way, to those systems, sometimes in a childish way, if I may say, but they're actually targeting it. Those more sophisticated hackers publish all kind of addresses, and that could be email addresses, but it could be also MAC addresses and so forth, IP addresses for those organizations, for those critical systems, and then everybody tries to do something. Now, it's really hard to defend on regular days, so imagine what happens when it's a rain of all kinds of attacks. Some of them are funny, but all comes out as notifications on your cyber systems, on your defense systems. So this is quite a battle. The second area is the public opinion. Public opinion could be dramatically influence the critical systems or critical issues, especially when decision makers are building the thesis or taking the decision, in a popular way, I might say, that actually echoes with what they see on the network. And what we also saw is like amplifying those network attacks to the traditional news broadcasts and so forth, and they found their way to the parliament, to the places where decisions are made. And in this way, when there is an attack, an organized attack through the public opinion channels, the social medias and so forth, it goes straight to the decision makers, and then using tools like deep fake, or not being honest, or not going by the truth, on not or actually manipulating facts, and then echoing it within the social networks. And as I added, this statue is a statue from Ramat Gan that represent that Israel on the right side is always on the minority side, always find itself fighting and trying to survive when there is a majority attacking. And in the cyber, especially in the public opinion area, this is the same. We have talks through the Israeli social leaders community and the cyber leaders community that it's really hard when you are trying to change or influence through public opinion channels, when on the other side there are millions or 10 millions or 100 millions of people that think that you are not liable, and you're not relevant, or they have their opinion and your opinion is it doesn't really matter if it's a truth or not. It's always in a minority. And then for every meme, for every post, for every even something honest and clear, you get a lot of resistance. And I know it's not the usual cyber battlefield, but behind many of that, and this is, I'm jumping just for a second to the offensive side. Imagine that we can bring an army of avatars to help us push those public opinions through the social networks, meaning that we don't really need real people to echo and do the like and add their sentiment to the social networks. So I've seen more than one initiatives to use avatars and use tools that might manipulate, if I may say, or trigger some algorithms through those social networks, Meta and of course Twitter or X, and make sure that the right tweets will go forward and will echo more. So this is about public opinion. And last one is home front resilience. Home front resilience is very vulnerable from many aspects. First, the critical system. I think it came out to the public that we had in our alarm system, in the system that the home front command used to alert about missiles. We had a minor support issue, if I may say, not because of cyber attack. Something didn't work very well for a few hours, one of those days, and everybody were quite nervous that it was hacked and it was attacked. Now, of course, it's a critical system, and it was always people hacked it or tried to hack it all the time, but they managed to defend it. This is a kind of area that actually influence on the home front resilience, because when people are not sure, when people are not actually understanding why something happening with their applications, they have fear from cyber attacks, and then they lose their resilience. Another example that I want to put here is the fact that we are using, everybody probably in the area are using kind of amplifiers that will block GPS accuracy. So suddenly what happens to the civilians back home is that when they use Waze is not actually understanding where they are. And what we got to see are maps in Arab language. Like, we are speaking Hebrew, but suddenly all the maps change to Arab. And when you are digging to understand that, it's because somehow Waze thought, because of the GPS shift, that you are in a different country. Sometimes it thinks you are in Gaza, sometimes it thinks you are in Jordan or in Lebanon or somewhere else, and then it replaced all your map platform. So this is kind of a thing that people suddenly wake up in the morning, they want to use ways to go to work, and they discover that it's all in Arab, and there is a lot of fear and a lot of miscalculation could be coming out of it. So this is kind of aspects that might influence on home front resilience. The other aspect is denial of service for many services, from banking or I don't know, even e-commerce that are important for ordering I don't know, your supermarket, grocery, and so forth. And those areas where we're suffering or still suffering from attacks. Some of the attacks are just to deny and prevent the service. Some of the attacks are actually to manipulate and do something more harmful. I'd like to move to the other side, to the offensive side, and this is two areas that I've seen a major effort to use cyber and AI both together to achieve some goals and KPIs. One of them, of course, is the campaign to trace about hostages, whether about their situation or whether about where they are or what happened, and who is dead or alive. It's a really tough area, but the campaign is including parts of trying to recover data and discover data and find more data. And in that case, you have to scroll the networks, you have to scrap data from all kind of social networks and pages and so forth, and you have to collect it. And while doing it, you have to use AI. I'll give you one example. You want to use AI to run over millions of video shots or video, small video plays, and see if there is Hebrew speaking near Arabic written sign. So the image could say it's in Arabic place, it could be in Gaza, but on the sound you can hear Hebrew. Now, if you can find such movies along the network, so you can filter and find more easily those that are probably more interesting. So this is like one example when you want to implement AI to dig the right data out of the cyber, out of the web in a way. So this is one thing, and other things are related to manipulating on the cyber, like advertising all kind of facts or fake facts to get the response and get other, you have to give sometimes some information to get back more information. So this kind of influence campaigns and campaigns that might be helpful to discover more data are part of the hostages tracing campaign. The other side is the battle of finance. What we've seen since day one is that many, like thousands of new fundraising websites and groups in Instagram, in WhatsApp, or whatever, that are opening a wallet. Sometimes it's a crypto wallet, sometimes it's a bank account, and trying to collect and raise funds against Israel. So this is a battle of finance. You try to block those finance channels. You try to prevent them. If you can connect them and convince the banks or the countries that the accounts are in their authority, then you can block them even in a legal way, or sometimes you have to jam them or take them down in a way that it is more spontaneous. The amazing thing here is that I saw in both areas, but also on the defending side, that suddenly it's not only the government and the defense forces and so forth are fighting in the cyber, but also civilians with basic knowledge, with some hacking experience, with some social networking experience, tried and did great effort that actually it came out as a combined battle, as a combined action. And this is something amazing, that the civilian side, people on their own minds try to do something to help to win this battle. One of the challenges was to make sure nobody harms the other and still make room for the other to be active. So this was part of the things that we did on the first month, to make sure that there is no crossfire between civilians. Crossfire, I mean like digital crossfire between civilians and the government. And I think the real thought that I had those days is that Israel is really having an unfair advantage from few perspectives. One of them is that we are initiating and we are daring, and I've seen things coming out of the system or out of the civilians that was really amazing. Things that didn't happen before, and suddenly when we came to this situation and found ourselves in a place that we never planned to be and never thought that could be, suddenly people are doing something more daring, something more strong, something more aggressive than before. So I've seen few initiatives on that side. We have some experience in cyber wars. Israel is, I know, since the cyber is there, Israel is a target from all over the world. Sometimes it's based on hate, sometimes it's based on, I don't know, other issues. But Israel is actually a target for many. It makes us more experienced with the cyber wars that we used to conduct. I think Israel is very strong with focus. When we see a target, we know how to focus on it and moving very fast. And I think what happened with AI is now that it has its first battle. Before that, AI was not so used because there was no problem of scale. And now, when you have to do it in scale, you really have to use the machine and the AI to make sure you are working in a strong force and a collaborative one. So, and you see here something that I got from Microsoft showing where is Israel comparing to other. I think it says it all.
Wow.
Well,
Wow.
that was in a short.
No, thank you, Yorai. I appreciate that. It was a lot of information, but really insightful stuff. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about influence operations in a moment, but I think this was a really good intro to all the different types of challenges that Israel is facing. I'm going to go ahead and jump into our next topic here, which is discussing the ways that AI and cybersecurity as technology areas are starting to converge together. And I'm going to take the first crack at this one. Yorai, I'll then pass it over to you to get some feedback as well. And I want to also share what I've seen from Microsoft, who's diving headfirst into this AI-infused cybersecurity area, or cybersecurity era, excuse me. Those in the industry may see this as an obvious statement, but AI has become a huge opportunity for cybersecurity, but also a huge threat and a huge challenge for those cybersecurity teams and leaders. I'm going to start off by highlighting some of the pros here. AI in general has the potential to help security professionals detect and respond to cyber threats at a much faster speed than they ever could, and with more agility than they have in previous times. There's also tons of new AI technologies that are emerging to assist security operations centers or SOC teams to identify and combat the latest cyber threats, and use these AI solutions to try to stay ahead of their attackers. When we move down to the cons, the attackers or the bad actors, some people call them the hackers, they're also exploring these AI technologies, meaning there's new types of attacks, there's new impersonation techniques, their social engineering schemes are improving significantly. In the same way that many people look at ChatGPT as a great tool for responding to emails, the malicious actors are exploring their new use cases for leveraging generative AI. Some of those advantages are highlighted here in the Gartner chart that I pasted in the top right of the slide. The one that I want to really spend time talking about is the impersonation category. So these AI bots are becoming a lot better. They're speaking and they're writing in English and in all languages more fluently, which makes them a lot harder to detect as malicious. And if you're not familiar, Yorai talked a little bit about deepfakes. That's another impersonation scheme that we're seeing become a lot more relevant, now that we're in this AI era. And a deep fake, for those of you who aren't familiar, is when someone uses a digital tool and AI to create a convincing looking image or video of somebody doing something or saying something. Traditionally, these deep fakes were used to target celebrities and senior officials, to impact those individuals' reputation. Today, we're seeing deep fakes used in a very different way. They're being used to compromise and to forge users' identities, as Yorai had called out just a moment ago. So, there have been news articles where deepfakes have been used to fake biometrics and fake facial recognition or face ID, fake fingerprints. And cyber criminals are even using deepfakes and these deepfake schemes to steal money from financial institutions. They're actually pretending to be account owners, logging into meetings, and actually stealing money, pretending to be someone who they're not. So, those are just a couple of the new serious challenges for those in the cybersecurity industry related to AI. And I want to just touch on the second con. This is one that applies across all AI conversations in these early days of the technology. But everyone's thinking about privacy. They're thinking about data protection. Companies and governments are worried about putting their sensitive information and their data in these large language models, in these AI systems, without data governance and data protection being put in place. So overall, on this slide, the main point that I want to drive home is that AI provides a lot of upside in many different areas, including cybersecurity, but it also presents new challenges that are relevant not only for governments and enterprises, but also for all of us in our day-to-day lives. With that said, Yorai, I want to come back over to you. That's my take on the convergence of AI and cybersecurity. But I want to jump ahead to your slide here and pass it over to you to discuss how you see these technology areas coming together.
Cool. Well, you've touched some of it, but I want to emphasize some areas. Maybe I'll emphasize those that we see more lately. Sometimes it's related to generative AI and how AI can help both sides, the side of the attackers and the side of the defenders. So I'll start from maybe one example. We all heard about LLMs, large language models. Now, the basic contribution of such a model, which is something new for us, it became operational, let's say, the last 1 year or maybe 1.5 years, that we all feel the impact of that. But the real thing behind LLMs is what is called attention. Now, what is it, attention? Attention is the word that we call the characteristic of software to understand the context. So it means that if you say something now and then you refer it, the machine can understand that this is that they have some relation between them. There is an attention between one side to the other. And once it was given us by those chatbots and so forth, we understood that this is a major part of moving forward with machines to become more, I don't want to say more humanized, but acting more easily with humans, because humans keep the attention. We have the context all the time. We keep the context, and the machine didn't do that a few years ago. Now with the attention, with the large language model, they do. There is a capability, and there is a race who is having the longest attention capabilities. How does this relevant to cyber? In both ways. I'll describe it for the attackers and for the defenders. So for the attackers, many attacks, it's not like one line or one action. It's one action after the other, depends on the other side. And you try to penetrate a system, you have to see its reaction, its feedback, and then you have to manipulate and change and do it again and try. Now, if you do it with the context, if you do it with the content or you do it without the content, it's a whole different game. If you can keep the content, if you keep the attention, then you're probably gonna succeed more, and you will do it like a human in the loop would do it. So once we gave the attackers the ability to keep the context along their attack, and it could be a single attack that takes a few minutes, but it could be an attack that takes a few days. I'm looking now about how to secure blockchain protocols. In blockchain protocols, attacks are not built like in a second. They are built within months, and then suddenly there is the last pin on the rack that builds the attacks and makes it active. But it builds like commands and lines that are streamed to the blockchain one day after, and after a few months, then suddenly the last one is coming and it's activated. And we've seen a lot of hacks going on the cyber, and also a lot of hacks going on the blockchain, but they were done manually. And now with the attention mechanism, they could be done automatically and then scale. So this is on the attacker's side. On the defender side, this attention mechanism could really help understand the big picture. Otherwise, those cybersecurity managers and defenders are looking on notifications, try to put them under well-known rules, and to find those that are relevant and ignore what we call the noise and the influence of similar things that they are not attacked. With the attention models, you can actually build a better understanding of the big picture, the big situation, understand the context of each partial notification or threat detection, and understand the big picture. So this is something very new. And I've seen already some startups that are trying to connect notifications from the technical side and notifications from let's say, the business side. Imagine a bank. So there could be one notification about someone trying to penetrate using different passwords. I don't know, playing with the passwords too many times in a suspicious way. And on the other side, to penetrate a single bank account. And then on the other side, there could be one transaction on the bank side, on the accounting side, which is an anomaly. And up to date, we can't connect them both because they were separately discussed and no attention between them. But if now we can combine it together to understand the big picture, we can understand that there is a relationship between a transaction transferring money to a penetration attempt that happened a few days ago. So in that manner, it gives a very powerful tool for the defenders, but it's an arm race. So you can never know, someone that wins and someone the other. So this is how our life are going to look like in the coming future.
Yeah, thanks, Yorai. I think it's really interesting to think about how these technologies, differ for the attackers and, as you call them, the defenders. And while it may seem that there's some disadvantages from AI, it's actually a huge opportunity for the defenders as well to beat out the attackers, learn these new techniques ahead of time, and beat them to the punch, if you will. So I'm going to keep moving us forward here onto our next topic, which is cybersecurity for governments versus enterprises. So, I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to take the first swing here once again, and then I'll pass it to you, Yorai. Obviously, there's a lot going on this slide, which I want to apologize for. But outside the sides of the Venn diagram, I've added a bunch of news snippets of famous or really infamous security incidents that have happened over the past couple of years. On the left side are some security breaches and some leaks that have happened in the private sector. And then on the right side of the slide, you can see some notable public sector security incidents. So please take a good look at those. But what I want you to actually focus on is the Venn diagram itself that highlights some of the cybersecurity priorities for a typical enterprise versus how governments are thinking about cybersecurity. And I want to mention this is obviously not an exhaustive list, but just some of the core priorities and challenges that each organization type faces. So I'm going to start on the left with the enterprise priorities. And when I say enterprise, you can think of a retail company or a technology company, an airline, any big company. They all have in common priorities of wanting to and really needing to protect their employees and their customers' personal data, as well as their IP or their intellectual property, which in a lot of ways really leads to their revenue and their ability to make money. When a cyber gang or bad actor shuts down a large company's business systems, these organizations can suffer millions of dollars per day or per hour, per month in lost revenue. as well as a hit to their reputation, which for public companies, their ability to withstand cyber attacks and have a strong cybersecurity reputation can change how much risk investors see in their company. So companies' actual cybersecurity posture and reputation actually affects how their market value and their stock price can fluctuate. So those are things that are really top of mind for enterprises and why they're constantly thinking about cybersecurity. When we shift to the other side, to the right side of the screen, the government priorities, for governments, there's some key different priorities. Safety, protecting government services, those are requirements that are really unique to government organizations. You may be asking, what is a government service? That could be food stamps, that could be power and utilities and water for a municipality, for a state, for a country. Of course, governments also have to deal with sensitive data from both their civilians and the data that's handled by agencies that make up their governments. And then I want to now focus in the middle of the Venn diagram, the both section. So finally, while there are some key differences, there are more similarities and differences when it comes to how governments and enterprises are looking at cybersecurity. They're both focused on protecting sensitive data. They're both securing critical systems, which Yorai had mentioned in the case of Israel is something that is a top of mind focus. A lot of bad actors are attacking and going after those critical systems. And both organization types are dealing with cyber gangs, and they're dealing with nation state bad actors. One thing I do want to say, Israel is very unique. Israel's not an average government, and I think you highlighted that really well in the last slide. They're one of the most, targeted entities, government or company in the world, which makes Israel's cybersecurity priorities very different than most countries in the world. And Yorai, you actually brought a really interesting point up that in some ways it's an advantage because we're getting, Israel's being exposed to these different bleeding edge attacks and getting an opportunity to learn about them and adjust and stay nimble. So I wanted to come to you, given your experience both in government and now in the private sector. How do you think cybersecurity differs for governments and for enterprises? And do you agree, I think you agree, that Israel faces a disproportionate amount of cyber attacks and unique challenges?
So a few things, and I think the most significant thing is that in Israel, many enterprises are enjoying government standard because they take into their important positions as CISO and so forth, people that served in the government side. Like I think in all Israeli banks, the CISOs are really cyber players for 20 years in the defense sector, said with some of them in the intelligence forces. So, and it's not a secret. So they really understand the way the enemy or the attacker is acting. He's doing it against the bank, from different reasons, but still the method and the system he uses, the technologies are similar. So in Israel, we have kind of similarity between two sides, but still governments and the private sector or the civilian sector are actually using different methods to defend. I think governments are using much more offensive actions against the attackers, and this is a major difference than what could be done on enterprises. I mean, if you are Walmart, you can't attack back. You can't reach out to those attackers and try to, do blocking against their IP or even prevent them from entering through the cyber to your country or to your areas of IT and data centers. But if you are a government, you really could do that. I mean, if you are a government and you sense kind of area that you're getting attacked on, and you can go and try to trace back a little bit and find where it's coming from, you actually can go and activate many fences and many walls against those actors, and also do offensive things if you find offensive. I mean, in a cyber way, against those like doing takedowns for those players and so forth. So this is one thing. Another thing is that on on the enterprise side, when discussing things that are related to money, like ransom and so forth, they have the option to pay in relief, to pay money. Well, this is why they are targeted, but still they have the option. I don't see a government paying a hacker for a ransom or for something. Usually, it's not possible. So sometimes you get to see enterprise. When I'm saying enterprise, I mean businesses. It doesn't really. It could be also small, medium businesses. But what they could do is sometimes, pay the ransom. They have insurance. They have all kinds of solutions that governments don't. Government can't get insurance to their electricity infrastructure and then pay the ransom. I don't know, something like that. So they have to implement other tools. So I think the battlefields are looking a little bit different. But the outcome on the public, on the country, when it comes to scale, sometimes it's very similar. I mean, what would scare you more? Your bank is down, is not accessible, or your I don't know, water system is
compromised,
is broken. It's all could be fixed within few hours, right? So you just feel penetrated in different areas. So what will make you more worried? I know I might be more worried when my bank is down because I'm not sure they can recover. My water system, I'm sure they're going to recover, right? Well, I really hope I'm going to be sure of that. But sometimes for those that suffer from that attack, it doesn't really matter if it's the government area or the private sector, like
definitely
many other things.
Agreed. Yeah, the stakes are high for both. There's no doubt about that. I think there's a unique situation with governments that they have a duty to protect their civilians. And in a similar way, enterprises are thinking about protecting their people, their employees, and also the customers that they serve. So I'd say there is more similarities and differences, but it was nice, I think, to point out a couple nuances where government is a little different. We're on to our last topic. And here, the goal is just to highlight some big picture trends that we covered today, Yorai. And I think that, we should keep an eye on some of these in the coming years. And, really for our audience, I just want to make sure that they are taking these away from our discussion today. So I'm going to go ahead and jump through a couple of them quickly. The first one is influence operations. And Yorai, this is actually, I prefer if you start here, given how much time you've spent working against influence operations. How do you see these IOs, that they're called, influence operations, continuing to play a role going forward? And how do you combat them, given how easy it is for people to, as you mentioned, spin up, what Microsoft has been calling sock puppet social media accounts and using those to influence people? What are your thoughts on kind of how we'll continue to see those and what we can do to combat them?
So I think what happened since October 7th is suddenly many things and many methods that we've seen once in a while, and in a specific campaign, once here, once there. Suddenly, we saw it as a scaled up battlefield, and I think when the water are boiling, then you get to see what is working and what is not working, and what really troubles you and what not. So I think many campaigns are actually revealed as a campaign, and then they are not relevant anymore. When you see a deep fake and suddenly the network discover by itself that it is a fake, and then it plays against the one that runs the campaign, right? So we've seen things like that because everybody are with I call it with open nerves. Everybody are alert and they are checking everything. So it's really hard to create a meme that will make people believe that it is true. It's really hard. So this is the way that you get to see what is working and what is not. I mean, campaigns that could manage and happen successfully when there is a lot of noise, they are really strong campaigns, and people are learning from them and understand which campaign is good and effective and which campaign is not. I think we understand that we are all being played by those influencers, or the influencers are not the only person. It's the campaign manager that influences you. I think that we understand now the tools that might help us before to do campaigns like advertising campaigns, to sell games or I don't know, things like that over the network. Now they suddenly can manipulate your mind. And I think what will come out of it is that we're going to see more regulations and more demand for tools to protect against those campaigns, because they might harm, because it goes to the decision makers. It might actually harm countries and of course the people. So it's not only that I sent you I don't know, a fake image and now you're very sad or very happy. It might actually cause a decision maker to do a mistake, and we've seen such mistakes along the last few months. So I think here we're going to see more regulation and more tools to understand whether it's a campaign or not. Is it planned, engineered or not? And we already see a few startups raise money and go to that area.
Yeah, it's an exciting space because, to your point, we're in the Wild West right now of influence operations. There's very little governance and control around how people are, able to post information, whether it's accurate information. And I agree. I think it's a big space that people are going to be spending time and investing in.
And just to emphasize that, half of the world, of the democratic world, is going to election on 2024. So
absolutely,
we're going to see a lot of that.
It's only going to become more relevant. I've seen a lot of Microsoft articles about the same thing: is how are we going to defend these elections? The U.S. has a big election in 2024, and as you said, much of the world has got elections coming up, which influence on those is something we need to be thinking about. I'm going to keep us moving here because I know we wanted to keep this under an hour, and we're cutting it close. So the Microsoft Threat Analysis Center, closing out this point here. They did recently publish a blog, and I'll tag it on to the meeting here, that focused on the rise of influence operations targeted at Israel since October 7th. Some really scary evidence in that article. Strategic propaganda that's been targeted at Israel, that's being circulated by those sock puppet social media accounts, and it's definitely something that is a serious concern. Not just in this war with Israel, but as you mentioned, globally for all different types of reasons. Next area I want to jump into, our second big trend, is generative AI. So we're in a time that I would call the gold rush for AI. We all heard about ChatGPT a little over a year ago when everyone started to realize how these AI assistants, these AI tools could fundamentally change our lives. And for me, at least, I am really starting to wonder, what is the future of these AI tools going to look like? Yorai, when I think about generative AI for my generation and in my day-to-day life, it's a tool that I use to expedite my responsibilities, whether that's doing research on a topic or it's proofreading my writing, even generating content. It's mind-blowing how, these tools can really help you complete tasks way faster than you would have ever been able to do. How do you see generative AI impacting industries and how we live our lives, in these coming years? I know it's a bit of an open-ended question, but just curious, given, the fact that you're seeing all these really unique and innovative startups coming around. How do you think people should, think about how things around them might change with generative AI becoming more accessible?
So first thing, I think it's going to impact the roles and the jobs that we might think of in a few years from now. I mean, we suddenly will see less administrative jobs or some of the very shallow creatives and so forth, because the machine could do it much better and much faster. But we're going to see more and more creative jobs for writing prompt engineering, for writing the prompts and asking the machine and actually activating by voice or by text those powerful machines to get whatever you want. So it's like when you describe an image and you want to get it done, you should know how to describe it. And it's kind of magic and something to be learned. And I think it's going to be one of the job descriptions in the nearest future of how to write those prompts to get fast and accurate of what you want. Another thing that might be done is, I think, if we look at the amount of data that was created by now, it was usually created by humans. I mean, all the web and all the data available by humans, and some of it maybe on the signals and so forth by the machines because of the protocols, the communication protocols, and so forth. But suddenly, we're going to see it 10 times more being created by the machine. I think the first jump came when we start using digital cameras. Suddenly, everything is with images and videos, and now we are generating it. So you are not taking one image; you are taking, I don't know, 10 images per instance, and suddenly the net or the capacity of data is going to be scaled up 10 times, or I don't know, 100 times more. So we're going to have to see tools, but also a culture that knows how to deal with that. I mean, that we are as humans,
Yep.
We're going to have to use other way this data. And this is actually the beginning. We are now at the beginning of the area where we have to ask for the help of the machines to do basic things, because too much data is going to make us really missing the point or losing focus or I don't know, messed up, and the machines are going to help us to focus. So
Yep.
we are just feeling now the those things that you are the office helper for writing a post, for creating a deck or whatever. But later on, we're going to see tools that will really help us to navigate the data and to get where we want to. Otherwise, we're going to get lost.
Agreed.
That's what
Yeah, it's the early days. I think it's safe to say we've got a long way to go, but we're already seeing a lot of really incredible innovation. I know I'm excited, and I'm sure we're all very excited to see how this continues to, change our lives. Third topic I want to jump to here is impersonation techniques, or AI-infused impersonation techniques. And I know we've touched on this a few times in the webinar. If people leave today's discussion being a bit more skeptical of the texts and emails and calls they receive, then I think we did them, a service. And I think it's safe to say that we're all getting tons of spam calls and texts and social media interactions. And right now they're pretty easy to spot. These days I'll get a text that says, "Hey, Susie, you want to go on a walk?" And I have a good idea that that's probably spam or, a missed text. But I expect that because it's becoming easier for everyone to access AI, that we're likely going to see a lot more realistic impersonation attacks in the future. What do you think, Yorai? Is AI going to make these impersonations, techniques more, accurate and more kind of, help, lure the people in our day to day? Do you think that we're going to see that as regular civilians?
So this is a time where I like to share the story of Pinocchio. Pinocchio is something special. When my child is 8 years old, but when he was 5 years old, I used to tell him a story before bedtime. Pinocchio was one of them, right? So he was always asking, "Is he real now?" Like, that was the question. Well, the Pinocchio character is a doll, and then it's something. It's a half human, I don't know, humanized doll. At the end, he is real. He's a real boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my kid was asking from the beginning, "Wait, is he real now? Is he real now?" I was asking, "Why you think he is real now? You know the end of the story. It's not. Well, what is the problem?" And he was kind of asking a few questions. There is the image of Pinocchio going to school with an apple. What is he doing with the apple? Is he going to eat the apple? Is this pile of wood going to eat the apple? Why does it? Why do we see an apple on the image, right? This is called the uncanny valley. And we are as human, when we meet a machine that mimics humans or looks like human, and we all felt it when we jumped into a chat bot that tries to give us support or help on all sides a few years ago. And at the beginning, we were not sure if it's human or not in front of us. And then when we discovered it's a machine, we kind of went back and asked for human representative. And now, in a sudden, after this generative AI and AI infused impersonation techniques, suddenly we say please to the chatbot or to the Gemini or whatever. We actually decided that we're going to talk to it like it's a human person, and we act politely. So what is really happened is actually that suddenly those engineers found a way to take us all and cross the uncanny valley and make us accepting the humanity of the machine. And this is how it's going to be. Now, you're discussing deep fakes. I think that we are already accepting deep fake, and we are accepting it not only with rejecting, we're accepting it because we know it's the machine, and we are willing to create a connection, connect or interact with this deep fake. We are willing to do that. We are okay with that. It's okay for us to see an image speaking with the lips moving the right way, and we are willing to talk with that. Even we know it's a deep fake.
Yep.
Even though it's not the rock star that we are talking with, even if we know it's just an image, we are willing to do that, and we do it with. I see psychological applications. People share their fears, share their own problems with a fake, image. I see people activating commercial ads that are doing kind of a fake imaging of fake movie or fake chatbots and so forth. So people are actually willing to accept it. It means that they pass the uncanny valley and they are willing to work with the machines. So somehow I think the deep fakes are going to be part of our life.
Yeah.
The problem is with the malicious or the bad deep fake, and those should be regulated out of the game. But deep fake is going to be part of our life. It's like the metaverse. You are going to be there and play there with your own character or a different character, and you're going to act with other characters, and you don't really care because this is your network, this is your relationship. It's a different kind of relationship.
Yeah, agreed. And these are not new. It's not new for us to be dealing with impersonation attacks, but the way that we're getting attacked and the spoofing and the deep fakes that are happening, they're really changing. And like you said, it's going to be something we're going to have to learn to live with, which is scary, but it's a reality and it's a challenge that we have to take on head first. Going to jump into our last item here, and thank you everyone for sticking around. I wanted to just think about how AI is a new challenge for biometrics and for authentication methods. We're talking a lot about deepfakes of people's IDs and their fingerprints. It's 2024 and hackers are literally stealing your face to use on facial recognition techniques and different technologies, which is pretty scary. I believe this further pushes the narrative of zero trust, which I know is sometimes looked at as an overused term in the industry, but it essentially means that we always have to assume that any access request, anyone that's logging into an organization or logging into a system, it could be a breach. And these identity systems need to be constantly evaluating the riskiness of a user and ensuring that they really are who they say they are. Yorai, I'm not sure how much time you've spent on identity and authentication in this space. Any thoughts here as we wrap up on how AI is going to have an impact? And is this something that we may be seeing at all today?
So I think AI and compute power together, because it's going to have to be even compute power on the edge, it's going to be part of the solution. But it's always raising the bar. It's never going to end. Always, for every solution, for every bar raised on the defending side, we're going to see solutions coming from the other side. The first time we 3D printed glasses that actually, with taking your image and my image, printing new glasses, and I'm wearing it, and Facebook thinks that I'm you, that I'm Jonah, right? It was the first time was 5 years ago. right? In Bar Ilan University, my friend, Professor Yossi Keshet did it. So for every bar that's raised, like face recognition, somebody will find, and AI systems are inherently problematic on that area. They have some issues within the algorithm that it's really hard to protect from this kind of attack. So we're always going to see it and try to raise the bar, and then the other side is going to find a way. And this is how it's going to be all the time. There is no, maybe going off grid is a solution, but I can't recommend it here.
Definitely hard to go off the grid these days with how we rely on technology. I wrote down a comment you just made that every time the bar is raised, new exploits are being discovered, and it's our responsibility to combat those and to find new solutions and fix those. So I think that's really unique, and a trend here that we're going to see is that, yeah, there's new challenges, but it's also on the defenders, the really talented people who are tackling these problems to figure out how to combat those. So with that said, that's all we had today. We're going to start to wrap up now. I want to thank everybody for joining. For those of you who stuck around, Yorai, thank you for helping present today. This was a lot of fun. Igal, I'm going to pass it to you to discuss how folks can get involved in the AFIICC and have you close us out here. I'm going to drop off, but I'm going to leave it to you, and I'll pass it over to you now. Igal, I'm unmuting you, and you're free to take over here.
Thank you, Jonah. Thank you, Yorai, for participating in the webinar. I greatly appreciate it. I really learned a lot about the AI and cybersecurity. Toda rabah. Thank you. As I mentioned before, the American Friends of the Israeli Intelligence Heritage and Commemoration Center was recently established as a 501c3, and we're planning to do more webinars. We're planning to have a seminar in Israel about the Israeli intelligence for 6 days to come and learn and visit different bases, meet former and current members of the Israeli intelligence. We also want to bring speakers from the Israeli intelligence from former Israeli intelligence to the United States. And we're now in the process of establishing the board of the organization and the different committees, PR committee, fundraising committee, and everyone who wants to be part of it, please call me. You have my cell phone and my email, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And also for donation, we will send you a link in our chat that you will receive the link where you can make a donation for the organization. I also want to thank you, Daniel Azuri, who helped us to make this happen. And thank you for participating. Toda rabah, and any question about the AFIICC, please contact me. Toda and shalom.